Thank
So
you.
does LSD open up the channels then too?
Not in
LSD?
quite the same way.
Okay.
No, not actually. There's something about the plant medicine. And I think because we are connected to it and it is us also, we are not separate from that either, that I think offers, what we're seeing, of course, is the neural pathway patterning is much more expanded and holds really for quite some time, as we know. And but then, of course, what's the work? The work is then how we live. How we live. There is no experience, is that there's no moment that if you do not then propagate, cultivate, practice, train, I don't know, what are the other words? Repeat, that will stay. Is that right? Don't we know it? And so we know this is a little bit of the chapter 7. We're already in it, aren't we? Which is we practice separation, folks. Don't we? We practice separation. We practice disconnect. We practice judgment. We practice aggression, don't we? And then we wonder how we got separate. But we don't have to wonder. We just have to look, don't we? We can see what contributes to our sense of paucity, bankruptcy, deficiency, not enoughness, emptiness. It's because you believed it. You bought in. You felt empty. And then you decided that's who you really were. And that's sad. And so the good news is, Sharon says, here is all the teachers have said to us throughout all time. There is a way to remember. And we've already named this for ourselves many times, haven't we? We've named nature. We've named being in community with others. We've named contributing, helping, volunteering, picking up another, lifting another up, and being lifted up, all as the real evidence.
So a lot of these homeless people have really disconnected from any reality then, of a lot of the homeless people.
I don't think that's the disconnect I'm talking about, Dennis. I'm talking about the disconnect of our own heart minds. I'm not talking about disconnect from society. I'm not talking about a disconnect from reality. I happen to think disconnect is bigger. I think it's more pervasive. I think it's dangerous. And I think we're all doing it. We all find our way into that homelessness, don't we? Anybody there not know this? Not know that homelessness, not know that feeling of disconnect, not know that not even feeling into one's own body, mind, not remembering one's own good heart. That's the biggest homelessness I know. Otherwise, you're just sleeping at the beach. So let's be careful about where we think homelessness is, because probably it's right here, isn't it? Probably. And so we're going to be practicing with that today, which is how do we find our way back to ourselves? Because if you don't have you, and I don't mean in that self-cherishing, small-minded way, I mean in that we connected way, we will suffer. Won't we all? We will. And every moment then that you find yourself in that disconnect, that separation, that small me, you will notice that suffering. Sharon called it at the beginning of the book constriction, didn't she? Joko called it whirlpool mind. The little me spinning around me in a little dead end whirlpool that went nowhere, that flowed to nothing, that eventually choked itself out. Isn't it true? Yes, it is. And we all know it. So we're going to be practicing today with seeing if we can open into the uh, mui, and recognizing all the ways in which we are not really, it's the illusion of separation and disconnect. And then we'll look at the chapter a little bit more. I want to just remind people that the work last week was to rest in awe, gratitude, appreciation, to say wow to life, to say yes. This was a way of beginning to wake us up a little bit, to bring a little energy into the intra-connectedness of it all, the intra-connectedness of it all. Can I, wow, see the reality of the connections that are available? Yeah, I'm looking just right now at these loquats outside my window. I'm kind of wowing over that. Like there's got to be a couple hundred on this branch. And what's more interesting to me now that I'm really looking at them is I've known those have been there for probably 2 weeks, and I haven't gotten myself over there one time, simply to enjoy them, whether I eat one or I don't, right? I'm going to make sure I do that today because that wow requires, what did we say, response. If you're really resting in wow, in awe, in wonder, in gratitude, you will be compelled, won't you, to act. If for nothing else, the action I'm talking about would mean hold it in loving awareness. That's the actions I'm talking about. Could you not, you couldn't not do it. And in fact, it's because you did it, says chapter 6. It's because you held it for a moment in loving awareness that you cultivated yourself the wow of it. That we have to bring a certain quality of heart mind. We're going to do it again. We're going to settle down the wow a little bit into that mycelium web of complete interconnection. So let's see if we can practice that together. I hadn't thought too much about how I was going to do that. So this be a little interesting. So just feeling into the body for a second and seeing if you can't create a little space and room there. The Buddha himself used words like untangle, unknot, untie, unbind the body. This is kind of good news. And then we get our feet, our base, the feet, the legs, and the hips established in some way that feels stable. And then finding the breath as it's moving in and out of the body. And our practice here, be watchful of this idea that you're going to start meditating. It's a very dangerous idea. You're already here. Awareness is already present. See if you can make contact with the sense of the breath moving in and out of the body without manipulating, without forcing in any way. And the reality of the mycelium web is alive right here in the breath. You are breathing in oxygen, atoms, particles, molecules that have touched infinite other things. In fact, part of the oxygen you're breathing has come from the trees outside your window. You could call it the tree breath. That oxygen being offered to you. And as you breathe out, seeing if you can know that that very carbon you're exhaling is being drawn in by those very same plants and trees. And that the breath itself is a bridge, is a golden thread, said the Buddha, connecting you to all things. A golden thread. I think meaning energized, enlivened. Now, there are two ways to breathe this essentially intra-connected breath. Two different ways. One is like in our Tong Len practice, to make the breath of fine mist. Breathing in the coolness, the dryness of the air, breathing it into the nostril, and transforming it by our wholeheartedness, by our care, by our compassion, and the reality of our interconnectedness. We breathe out warmth. Or we breathe out moisture. You are a part of that out breath. And we send that breath out. And by itself, we are already a part of the web of life. We have impacted it. We are a part of that whole. We can also send with that breath the heart mind, the human consciousness of the wishes for well-being, for ease, for freedom, for happiness. I sometimes call this the fine mist of metta. We breathe in, remembering that we've been offered this breath as we breathe in from all those elements, the earth, the trees, the waters, the air, the sun. And breathe it out. Awakened, connected. And you can send it out in that fine mist form, letting it touch all things in that wide open space. That's one method. You don't direct it, you just let it radiate. And unlike the Tong Len practice, we're not remembering of the difficult. We are remembering all the sources of goodness, of connection, of belonging to which we are an essential part, conspiring together to offer you this breath. And that you then too conspire with all those infinite, boundless elements to offer the out-breath to others. Continuing the mycelium web, you now, an essential contribution. The gift of the breath you were given, the gift of the out-breath that you are sending with those wishes. The second method that you can use is that golden thread. You can send out those wishes along with the out-breath. In that fine golden thread. And you can direct this one to those you love, or those in need. Creating, expanding, supporting that mycelium web with each breath. You are not an accident. You are part of this Indra's net, an essential star in a vast sky. We forget our brilliance, our radiance. And so then our habits, right, are to act too big. They get caught in the me, forgetting the bigger me. And in each breath, in this practice, we can remember. May I remember who I really am, an essential part of the vast, boundless whole, a facet of the diamond, a dewdrop that creates oceans. Never separate. And how would the body breathe if the heart might remember? It would nourish itself completely, wouldn't it? With a beautiful in-breath. Taking it all in, letting the belly expand. And it would offer it all in the out breath. Nothing held back. And there would be no thoughts of me or mine or you or yours. There would be only the golden thread of interconnection and healing. And there are moments when we are hubs, when we are the source itself, because we are whole, complete, connected, and in belonging. And then we can offer the out breath. And there are moments when we are nodes, when we are in need, when we are under-resourced, when we are disconnected. And then we can simply breathe in, taking in those needed supplies. Just notice where you are now. Breathing in, may I be happy. May I be free from distress. May I be peaceful and have ease. Breathing and offering that essential goodness, that essential source to oneself. May I remember that I am deserving, I am worthy, and a part of the whole. My well-being contributes to the well-being of all. But just rest in the in-breath for a few moments, offering yourself. Listen. Relaxing the body, opening the heart, thinking it in. And you remember that all that is available with each in-breath is being intentionally, on purpose, non-accidentally offered to you. That you are being offered. And all of that connects us. And see if you can notice how it feels when we make contact with that essential reality that I am worthy and deserving and part of the whole. And in this moment, in this in-breath, I can simply be receiving. We can breathe it into the whole body. We can breathe it into the heart space, wherever it's needed. With the breath, we continue listen. First to ourselves. And we have and be free from stress. May I be peaceful and be peace. And remember that I'm worthy of serving peace, love, and connection. And this may be the whole of the practice. And that's perfect practice. Simply drink in the goodness, rest in it. Remember the connection, our essential, immutable connection. And fill up the tank. And in this wholeness that you have established, you will be of benefit to others, and it will be a contribution in all the infinite ways that arises. And interestingly, I notice often for myself, um, my attention then naturally expands over time. And we let it take the time it takes. But it just naturally expands to include a larger space, whether that's the space in the room, others on Zoom, the yard with the crow, my husband upstairs, friends in the area, really, the mind simply, like the heart, expands itself in its wholeness. We can simply breathe, not only for ourselves, but others, offering these blessings so we can be more purposeful, more intentional, and send out the blessings with the out breath. The mycelium breath continues and expands and grows. Right through here. And you be may you be free from distress. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you know that you are worthy and deserving of only love and attention. That you are also a part of the world. And then using both the in and out breath, may we all be happy. Breathing in kindness and sending it out. May we all be free from the stress. May we all be peaceful and at ease. May we all remember the truth of this precious human life. We are both worthy of resource and a contribution. Sharing that resource with others. With each breath. And we are all filled with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and humanity. Shaping our world. Until all beings are happy, are peaceful and free. And may this practice this morning contribute. And may it continue breath by breath. And then we can't remember how we forget. And we do that over and over. Well, the good news is we remember, we repeat, so that we forget less and less. Less and less. And consequently, right, automatically really becoming more and more. That's the only way it can grow. And it can only grow. So reviewing just for a moment, that wow, that awe, that's the recognition, isn't it, of the reality of the intraconnection. That's what that is. The awe is, oh, I'm a part of all this. Wow. And then you could only say, wow. Right? That's what it is. It's simply recognition that I have been granted this life. Who knows how lucky I got? I don't know how I got that lucky. We understand it as being causes and conditions that have come throughout time, somehow beyond anything we likely could know or understand, but that we have been nourished by that Indra's net, by that interconnectedness, by that mycelium web throughout all time, resulting now in you. Wow. And then now what? Oh, you can't hear me. Let's see. Don't know why that might be. Greg, let me see if I can fix that a little bit. I'm talking, I think, probably normally. So it might be your computer might be low.
You
Maybe.
sound fine to me.
All right, Seth, thanks. Greg, I think you may have your settings. As happens on occasion, we have to raise our own volume. It could be.
No, the problem is I hear you just fine right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And my volume is up to the max, actually.
Okay, so it's
yeah.
not that.
But it's when you're doing the meditation, I cannot understand you.
That has happened before. I actually tried to speak up, project, but it could be. I'm more than capable of.
If I'm the only one, that's fine. It's you know, my hearing is not the best, so you know.
I'm sure it's not just you.
No,
I
had the same thing, and I have earphones in.
Yeah.
And it was very, very hard to hear.
Yeah. So my head must tip enough that right, it's not going that way, it's going down. So I will count on the fact that you guys got the idea and know that you will get the recording as well. And I will keep looking at what can I do to support that. I do have a headphone, so I do have a thing. Maybe I'll get it out and go over that with Seth one time before we start, so I make sure it works.
I kind of like it, Di, when you, not that I don't want to hear what you say, but as you kind of soften your voice, it makes me sort of drift into the words that you've had before. So just another input.
It's all workable, right? Everything's true. What's most true then? What's most true? Words and no words. The realities are the same. And I know you know them. I know you know them. I know you can also feel them. And our job this week is to see if we can begin to capture now as we look at the chapter 7, you are not alone. Not only the moments when we feel that connection through language, through sound, through physical contact, right, through touch, through the sense doors, and the mind that knows the reality of that continuous connection. But I also want us to look at how we create separation. So then you've got to make it up, don't you? This is a little interesting to me. You have to construct it. Since there is no reality for it, how convincing are you? You have to construct it. This is mind-blowing to me. And we do it so well. It's also mind-blowing to me. We manage to sit there in our own pity party and our own depression, our own, what's the point? I don't know, whatever we're doing, disappointment, right? We all do it, by the way, don't we? We all construct a perceived reality that says, I am not connected. I am not apart. And guess why it didn't go your way? That's why. That's how you got there. It's very simple, isn't it? It didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Connection did not come the way I thought it should come. He didn't say what I thought he should say. He didn't do what I thought he should do, right? They didn't act the way I thought they should act. I've got a narrow definition of love, by the way. It's what I want. That's my definition. That's my definition of love. I want what I want. Is it true? It's true. I want what I want. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's narrow, it's limited, and you're only going to hit that bullseye about once every billion years. So we may want to expand our definition. We may want to include, well, even the things that don't normally ring my bell. Doesn't make it less love. It may mean I need a bigger bell. Right? Isn't it the truth? May mean I need a little bigger bell to go, okay, you're never going to say all the right words in the right order because you just don't own that. And you're going to kill yourself to make sure I'm happy, safe, and protected.
It's interesting. I've been at my dad's, as you all know, but when the neighbor comes over or my sister-in-law or even the nurse, my dad's all hug and kiss them and will hold their hands. And when I kiss him or hug him, he's like, go away. Wipe his head off.
Yeah.
And I'm just struggling with it. And that I need to recognize their just an expand recognize how he shows his family love.
That's very common, actually, Robin. You're experiencing something that actually is more common than not, which is our own shame, our own egos, our own self-judgments step in with our most intimate others. And so I can hold the hand of a stranger all day long because I've got no history, I've got no pain, I've got no confusion, I've got no failure right there. Well, I can hold your hand forever. And when it comes to reaching out for the other who knows aspects of me, the time I was a dope, the time you didn't say the right, we bring shame and fear, right? And also, who do you rely on more than those others? It's scary business, isn't it? Now I'm counting on you, who's known me for 50 years, to still love me. Well, I might think I'm doing better with a stranger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Might do better with a stranger because, well, you don't know all that crap. You just know I'm in need. And again, isn't it scary? It's most scary to be vulnerable with the people we most love because we're most terrified that somehow they'll see the deficiencies that we think we see. Isn't it? They're going to see what we're walking, what think we're walking. And so my husband's father did a very similar thing. He would hold hands. Libby and I held our hand, right? And there was my husband who killed himself for 4 years for his dad. Right? Now, by the way, I don't think it had anything to do with love, just so you know. I think it had to do with some old ideas about what men did with men. And I think it was, you don't do that. You don't take the hand of a man. You don't kiss a man. You don't touch a man. There was some old rules, some crazy ideas there. And right, having nothing to do, of course, with the goodness of my husband, by the way, or the goodness of Jim. Not really, but that moment, right? And so we have to get bigger ourselves, don't we? We have to remember it isn't because you don't love me, it's because you've forgotten the loving of you. That's really where it comes from. Otherwise, we're all over the place, aren't we? Then. So be watchful, because we all do it. We all go, well, something about me. Not actually. Not actually something at all. The fear in me, which keeps us from it. I have two things to show you. We're going to look at the chapter. Let's see if we can do that. This is a pretty short chapter. I think we can do this pretty quickly. That we are not alone. We're going to be looking at how do we open consistently with practices to intraconnection. The breath itself. Rest there, in and out. You're interacting, interbeing with everything. Everything you eat, everything you touch, everything you see is in some way an interaction, an interconnection. And what we're starting to understand now, only because of the capacity of science to measure, we're not now recognizing that everything is transactional. Everything, including the plant in your room, is transactional. You are in relationship to that, whether you know it or you don't know it. So you don't ever look at that plant. You don't know what's going on. That plant's just in the corner doing what you think it's doing over there. Nope, it's not actually true. And there's studies now about that. The people who actually formed relationship to the plant by recognizing the plant as a living thing. By the way, same water. Same water. It wasn't that it wasn't getting water, but relationship changed everything in the plant. Wow, transactional, relational, we could say. It's happening every moment with everything, including often the thing you cannot see. The thing you cannot see. Now, I'm going to use my loquat as a little example. I'm sitting over here looking at the loquat, now sending the like that's beautiful, and look at how amazing. I feel a lot of gratitude for that loquat. The reality is that we are in relationship. Now, we always were, and now we are only more in relationship. And that's the thing we're going to remember. When people make offers of blessings, things like loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, and when we call another to heart mind, we frequently fall into the belief thought that somehow this isn't going to matter. It isn't enough. I'm not doing anything. Well, you're doing the biggest thing, actually, by the very calling up of life, that aspect of life, to heart mind. And then it says, from that relationship, every other right thing can happen. And isn't it true? Every other right thing will happen from that, not from just do it. It is insufficient, and we will do it often from the right guilt, or we'll do it from obligation, or and we know for sure, you can feel the difference in that, but we can actually make the offer from that sense of connection and love. And so let's look at the chapter. I'm going to go a little further. We talked about pride last week. I don't want to talk more about it. I hated the word, and I don't mean that really. I just wasn't the right word. Pride is not really what we mean. We really mean something closer to confidence, or knowing one's self-worth. Or it would be something more like that. It wouldn't be limited to the self, really. Right? Pride has a kind of sticky quality. The way we're really like both gratitude, appreciation, and joy for your being and contribution. And then understanding that it wasn't ever just yours. And that's what we're going to look at now, so that it doesn't get small, right? It gets bigger. So here's what Sharon has to say. We're on page 131. Connection is a profound human need. We know that there's a failure to thrive, both in infants and in the elderly. Failure to thrive. Why? They become invisible. There is no interaction, transaction, and relationship to them. And so this is a common problem in our current world, isn't it? The only way we think we can be worthy is if we're on TikTok with 1,000 views, or you get a bunch of likes, or right? We're all looking now for sources of validation and support for ourselves, because we do not live lives where we are in continuous, especially with COVID, relationship, contact, connection, and care. Sharon makes a distinction here between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is elected, it is chosen. It is a way of being with oneself and the world, by the way. It is not separate. You're not making yourself separate at all. You are choosing stillness and silence, however, as the container for the relationship. But it isn't just me over here, not even a little. Who was the guy from Northern California? Oh, John Muir. John Muir talked a lot about solitude, didn't he? He talked a lot about going into the forest, being with the mountains in solitude and in connection to all things through it. That's the difference. Really, solitude isn't a way of separating. It's a way of connecting with everything. Loneliness, on the other hand, is that delusional state. We have shrink wrapped the self, me, into a small contracted state with me here, everything else, all of life, really, interestingly, out there, over there. And those distinctions feel different. One is suffering. The other is ease. When we rest in solitude, we are in ease. When we rest in loneliness, aloneness, we are suffering. And really the repair is finding our way back to that connection. We've talked about Bardo's often before. We understand Bardo, just so we know, as not the space between birth, death, and birth. We understand the Bardo as every moment of groundless open space that we then have something to do with. How does it progress? How does it continue? So the Bardo, she uses it here, is every moment, and not just these moments where we are feeling disconnected, not just the moment. So be watchful of that. Loneliness can be a type of Bardo. Well, everything can. How do we attend to that loneliness? Here's one of my notes, and you'll get these questions. Let's see if I can see the note. I've got it written here. How come? Okay. What sensations accompany the feeling of aloneness for you? How do you know it? Empty, heavy, right? Or contracted in some way. Where do you notice? Where in the body do you notice that when you are in that alone or lonely place? We're going to watch for that this week. And there's the definition of solitude. And here's the question: what sensations and body experience do you notice in times when you are resting in solitude? What's different about loneliness versus solitude as it relates to the mind and body? How do you know it? One is expanded state, one is a contracted state, both in mind and body. See if you can't capture that felt sense. We live in a more atomized society. This is on page 132 now. An outsized emphasis on individualism is often coupled with a worldview of scarcity. The combo is deadly. A pervasive need to accumulate and to separate, because now nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. We cannot tolerate ourselves or each other because everything is now dangerous. And that's because we're living in chronic and constant fear. Our over-reliance on technology, says Sharon. Now, technology, I don't believe is our problem. I believe we've used technology to further our fear. We have used it. We were already in fear. It isn't like technology did that to us. We were in fear, and now we have used technology to further our sense of disconnect, separation, and fear. And we're all going to have to work diligently, fairly continuously, not to be caught in that, because technology is also connecting. It can be used in every way. It's just a tool. But if you get locked up in it and believe that, mistake it for a whole life, I think you could come out with that scarcity that Sharon is talking about. She writes on page 132, yes, we belong. Yes, we are a part of things. Yes, someone, in fact, hears us as we ask for the butter. This was a little bit of the joke of one of her friends, Bob Thurman, who said, you could die and not even notice that no one could hear you as you ask for the butter. That was written in the book. Micro connections. We're going to look for those micro connections throughout the week. A shared laugh, looking into another's eye, catching someone with that little smile, even that we might offer. And sometimes not even the smile, but knowing, I see you, you see me. I see you, you see me. One of the things John Kabat-Zinn said to me in our first training was something like that. He said, I see you, you see me. This is love. Isn't that wonderful? I see you, you see me. This is love. And it may be in passing, right? There's no conversation. Nobody picked up anything for you. But yet there is some acknowledgement. The grocer, the clerk at the store. Just yesterday, I was at the store and had lost a credit card, debit card briefly. Very serious, distressing event. And she said, just take a breath. Let's just look around for a moment. I decided to take a look for the card. I found it, by the way. And I came back to use the card, and I could see her looking at me like, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. This is going to be okay. She didn't say anything, but I got it in her eyes. She was happy for my greater ease. She was happy that I found the card, and I got that from her literally with a look. Can we find the micro connections in our days? That's going to be one of our assignments. COVID, we already know all the impacts of COVID. One of the things I suggested, what new opportunities for connection did you create and discover during COVID? What were the new possibilities? What were the new ways that you connected? We frequently talk about how we disconnected physically, but what were other ways that you were able to find connection to yourself, to others, to nature during that same period? Are they continuing? And if not, why not? Why aren't they continuing if they're not continuing? Is it because you've gone back to the old way? Because probably you haven't. We haven't, even as a Sangha, gotten back to meeting together, have we? So we haven't even done that. So the new way, here we are, we're on Zoom. right? It doesn't make it good or bad. It just means new possibilities, new creation. Let's keep using all of them. We need them all, the old ways and the new. Kathy Bristow is a minister. She talked about an 800 line where these volunteers would offer 5 minutes of really whatever I think you wanted. There was song, there was prayer, there was meditation, there was silence, whatever people were needing. This was actually being offered to healthcare professionals, by the way. And what I would like us to consider again is what could be your small offering? What could be your small offering? What would that look like? They said something like, we have 5 minutes. We can do whatever you want. We have these things to do. Right. And then they made the offer. What would be your micro offer from that micro connection? It might be something as small as a smile. It might be holding an eye for just a whole breath. It might be breathing for and towards another with a blessing. These are all called micro offers from that connection. I see you, you see me. What's the offer? Maybe just the breath taken on purpose. I want you to see the impact because it's actually quite profound. I'm present. I am your human connection for this short time, someone who cares that you are caring for all of us. That was what they said. You're going to look, what are you going to say, offer? What's that going to look like? What's your gesture for micro connection? You're going to find something this week. Connection is our greatest source of expansiveness. Ultimately, connection, I would say, begins as an inner state and then moves ever outward. Begins as an inner state and then moves ever outward. We want to be validated for who we are, but how we are seen is something we cannot control, even in intimate relationships. We frequently get caught, I think, don't we, in others' opinion, others' statements about us, others, and forget ourselves. Right? We go, well, I need you to think this about me for me to feel okay. I need you to validate me for me to be okay. I need for you to agree with me. Like, wow, that's dangerous for me to be okay. And the answer I'm going to ask is why? Why? Why do you need the other to agree with you? Why do you need the other? Well, we're looking for self-validation. And if we're looking for self-validation from the externals, what I will say is we have likely not cultivated it sufficiently ourselves. Right? Because if you know who you are, and I don't mean because of our inherent goodness and connectedness, then if somebody agrees with us or they don't agree with us, is fine. Right? It's not then a problem. It's just an opinion or a bias or a prejudice, but we often really wrangle with, you've got to see it like me. I struggle with this, definitely not with others' opinion of me, but with perceiving something in me that I did not do or say. Why? Why am I struggling with that? What's the point? It doesn't matter, right? I know I didn't. So if you think I did, then I have to just bow to that. Okay, you think I did. And I struggle. I go, wait a minute, that's not what I said. And it's not what I meant. And I haven't noticed that that's helpful. It doesn't work that way. I've tried it a few ways. I have not noticed that it's still very helpful. Like, okay, that's what you heard. I want to honor what you heard so that I can then, right? Your experience is yours. That's not a problem. That hasn't been very helpful either. It's continuous work. It's just continuous work. But I've got to be watchful of my own need to be understood. What is that? And it's a real opportunity. In the end, the foundation of our feeling connected instead of fragmented or split off is being in touch with the fullness of our own being and bringing that to relationship. The fullness, the wholeness of our own being and bringing that's the offer. And then whatever is happening with another is simply a part of the scene. It doesn't become the problem, the difficulty. Here's the note. Did you notice that when you are feeling disconnected, that you are in fact already separate, judgmental, or distant from your own experience? If you're looking for another, you have already in some essential way disconnected from your own knowing and from your own experience. Yes, it's true, even when you don't sense that. And that's when we start pulling on another. You've got to be, you've got to give me, you've got to say, you've got to do this, if only you would. And that's because we are looking to the other to do what? Do our work, which is how do I remember my own essential goodness and then live from that and then live from that. Then there would be really no aggression, no struggle, no separation. There's an inner rock bottom sense of connection that is most essential to all of us. When we are in judgment, when we're in separation, could we just know we need to go get some supplies? We need to go resource. We need to go get for ourselves. This is not seen as bad, needy, deficient. It's actually quite the opposite. We will then be greater, of more benefit to others as we nourish and nurture ourselves. Somebody decided to do a loving kindness meditation. These are essential blessings, goodness. May you, and we just did some of those today. May you be happy. Here's the other. I'm going to run to the. See if you can offer someone who you see. I can't read this. See if you can offer someone, who you see, a wish for well-being. Yeah, just make contact. In that contact, make the offer. That's the micro offer. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from distress. We're practicing this all the time. By the way, how many years have I been talking about this? Still forget. Still forget. How do I make contact? And then make the offer again and again so that that becomes by itself our default. This goes on to talk about the mycelium web. There's the mycelia. They were, of course, the mushrooms in particular have one of the most diverse, one of the most substantial mycelia possible. The pathways are unbelievable. And in fact, they create that in us. The Wood Wide Web, I thought that was adorable instead of the World Wide Web. I think I've got one more. It says here, the sharing goes both ways. We are both the hub and the hub and the node. We are both. We are both that which is deserving of receiving, and we are that which also offers. And don't mistake it. You are neither just the one who's got to give it away. Nope. And you are also not the one who just is receiving. That this is a multi-directional, two-way process. See where you notice both. Here I am in the receiving. I can receive. Here I am in the offering. And see if you don't notice its balance, because it is there. If it isn't there, I want you to look at that. What's happening? I'm only in receiving. I'm only in the taking. It'd be like one-sided breath, wouldn't it? I'm only breathing in. You can only do that for a while. And you can't just breathe out either, can you? So we're going to be noticing that. That talks about the trees and the connectedness. They were beautiful portrayals. The way that each cares for the other, I think, is what we're talking about now, that interrelationship. And then we have some other weekly practices in addition to micro connections, micro offerings. Who do you count on? This was one of the questions she asked, and I'll leave us with this. Who are you counting on? Who counts on you? How many people, how many relationships can you count? Who are you counting on, and who counts on you? And if it looks one-sided, it may be because you're not looking. And you're not looking correctly. I'd say be watchful of that. Let me see. I'm going to be sending these questions out. I have them right in hand. We are going to focus for just this week on chapter 7. We are not alone. I'll send the weekly practice. Most importantly, using the breath itself, recognizing the intra-connection right there. Then using one's own heart mind. Can I make micro connections, make micro offers? Could that include a blessing? Could that include a smile? Could that include the knowing? And then feeling the effects of those offerings. Then you cannot be alone. And in fact, it is not possible. It is not possible. So let's see if we can't practice so that we can remember. If there are any questions, feel free to write me. Those will go out today. We'll be working on chapter 8 next week. We have St. Andrew's coming up, which I know Greg would want me to remind everyone, on July 11th, the second Tuesday in July. We'll keep trying to remind you about that. We have a Mindful All Day coming up at Pete's Dome on Saturday, July 29th. 29th of July, not June. So remember that. We'll put that in the newsletter soon and get that out to you. I will be going into retreat at Quest Haven, July 13th, middle of July, to the 23rd. At Quest Haven, and we'll also be putting that out in the newsletter so that you can come and support me and Quest Haven, and also receive the benefits and blessings from both the practice and Quest Haven. So I look forward to sharing that with you all in a few weeks. We will be here in the garden this Saturday, as we will be now most Saturdays until I go into retreat that week of the 13th. So we'll do Zoom only at that time. Greg, is there anything else you think? I'm trying to cover our EMC bases here.
We're still, we're looking at figuring out a date for the showers of blessings, where we would go over to this thing that St. Andrews puts on every Saturday for anybody that in the community that's homeless. And it includes food, it includes showers, it includes helping people with mailing things. And there's a whole bunch of things that they do for the community in that regard. And you know, I guess it's quite well attended by a lot of people. And so we're going to think about doing this on a every other month basis on a Saturday. And
Are we going to go over this Saturday, Greg? I thought we were going to go check it out.
That's the idea, was to go over this Saturday, and I need to make an email here just to verify that
We can do that.
we can do that, but I think we can. Yeah.
I'd like to try if you're free. We wouldn't be able to get over till maybe around 9 o'clock, but we could still get over there and at least check it out and see if
Correct.
what so we could get ourselves organized and sign up. It
And-
sounds like a real opportunity.
Right, and leave as a group from after meditation.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that most of us are around. So if you could follow up and make sure that we would be welcome so that we don't offend anyone by showing up, I'd like to go over. And,
It's on my do list.
all right, I've got a couple of those myself, including the newsletter, folks. We're going to get that out. That's going to be happening in the next day. So thank you all. You've hung out a little extra long today. I appreciate you always and your patience and flexibility with that. Good luck with those micro blessings, micro connections, micro offerings. May we count them all. May we count them. May we all be well. Thank you, everyone, so much. I look forward to seeing you Saturday. The weather now looks like summer's going to happen after all. How amazing is that? I look forward to seeing you.
The water temperature is right now, it's about 63, but it's supposed to go up to 67 in about 7 or 8 days.
Yay.
Oh, that's what's going to change our weather here.
That's going to make the big difference, isn't
Get
it?
ready.
I better get out my paddleboard kayak.
Right.
Sounds like, and get that ready. I look forward to time in the ocean and time in the water as well. So a couple more degrees. Yay! It's getting there. Thank you all. Good to see you.
All right, sweetie. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good to see you, Aid. Everyone,
Okay, honey.
write your, Greg's going to write his email. I'm going to write mine. I'm going to be inviting folks who attended the Dosed film to a little conversation on Monday, next Monday. I'm more than happy to have others join, Dennis, if you want to come. It will be limited a little bit because you haven't seen the film, but I think fairly quickly you'd be able to catch on to really the point of the conversation and its benefit to everyone. So I'll put that out today as well. All right, everyone. Mwah!
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.